What is happening, guys? This is Forrest with the Built on Blue Collar podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in again. I have a good friend here with me, Taylor Willis with S&W Land Services. Yeah. And this is our first time meeting in person, and I know we've been talking back and forth for a little while now, and there's a few things that really stood out when I saw you on LinkedIn and started chatting with you, and one of those things is how much of a family man you are, and then obviously a business owner, an entrepreneur, and juggling both of those things. So yeah. I know that's one of the areas that that is a passion of mine, is like being a father and being able to run a business at the same time. So that'll be a heavy topic in this episode. But first, I just wanted to introduce you and probably dive straight into your background in the industry and give us an idea of what you do right now.
Yeah, well, it was great breaking bread with you earlier. It's awesome meeting face to face after talking for so long. So I've been around the explosives industry since I was a kid. I was lucky enough that my mom went to work for an explosives company and worked for them for close to 20 years. And through that, she met my stepdad, and they wound up getting married. And that was a really, kind of influential time in my life. And with her working there, being around that group of guys, I fell in love with the industry from the time I was a kid until now. It's a passion that I haven't been able to replace. I've done other things, moved into other roles and management roles and stuff like that, and there's nothing like pulling the trigger. that adrenaline rush, my hand still shakes to this day every time I do it, And so I feel extremely fortunate to be exposed to it at a young age. And after high school, went to college. College definitely did not work out for me. I'm not a college person. I went for landscape architecture because I had grown up doing pretty much anything physical labor. That's what I grew up doing. Very small town, less than 300 people, way out in the middle of nowhere.
West Texas?
West Texas, yeah, a little small town of Garden City. If anybody's listening from Garden City.
Did we pass through there the other day, Brian? I don't know.
Probably did. If you're heading to the Permian Basin from Central Texas at all, you usually go through. Yeah. So, it was a unique experience growing up out there. Everything we did was manual labor, working cattle, working sheep. One job we had one summer was my brother and I have a twin brother, and my brother and I, we would grab an axe, grab a file, grab a jug of water about 4 o'clock in the morning and head out, and we'd go chop mesquite out from around stock tanks all day. I mean, and that's tough physical work. So, growing up around that, it really conditioned us to be able to, do a lot of things in that physical realm of work there. So naturally, being around the explosives industry, being around that as a kid and seeing those guys coming in from the field working their butts off, coming in covered in sweat, dust from head to toe, but they're still talking crap to each other, still razzing each other, like having a great time. And
good morale.
They went out and suffered that day together. They went out and worked in 105-degree heat, got a tremendous amount of work done, and like they feel good about what they did. That stuck with me, and I think that's probably where the biggest part of my passion comes from. So, obviously this was back before 9/11. Things were a little bit different. I got to go out on my first shot when I was 12 years old. I'll never forget it. It was a highway job outside of Kerrville, Texas. Whenever you drive down the highway, especially here in Texas through the hill country, you'll come to those spots where the hills have been cut through. Yeah. You see those real nice, pretty little lines going down the side of each one of those cuts. That's pre-split, and that's what we were doing. I didn't know that Alan, my stepdad, probably asked us to go out there because they were short-handed and need somebody to hump 50-pound sacks of ANFO up a hill all day. But man, I was there for it, And I think the first time I saw that blast go off and smelt that powder burning and smelt that fresh earth being uncovered, it really is. It's just nothing that can be replaced. And so like I said, went to college. That didn't work out. The economy was really going bad at that point in time. So I did what I knew. I went back to went back to the Midland area, and went to work for a large explosives company there that my stepdad worked for, and that was a great experience. I started literally from the ground up. First job there, $10 an hour, working on the end of a shovel, working on the end of a hoe. I knew what my job every day was. Whenever I went out on the job site, I grabbed that shovel. I started covering holes. Anybody that stemmed hundreds of holes a day knows that they can get pretty monotonous. And so, that was a really encouragement to gain the skills that I needed to move forward in my career. So I quickly got my CDL, started driving a bulk truck. Started driving that, and the bulk truck is what delivers the explosives to the site. My view on positions like that, especially those entry-level positions, is you can take them for what they are and just say, man, this is an entry-level position. Oh, my gosh, it's so boring. Or you can take that time to observe what's going on around you and really learn that job site. And setting up in the driver's seats of those Kenworths, moving them around the job site and really watching what's going on, man, that was the best bird's eye view of really learning that operation. And I was really, really glad for my time to be able to do that. From there, I actually left and went and joined the Air Force. And I was in the Air Force, did a 4-year tour in the Air Force, worked with precision-guided missiles, which was really neat. Worked with an incredible group of guys and gals. Did some really amazing stuff. Got to experience some stuff that I never thought I'd get to experience in this lifetime. Country boy from West Texas living in Okinawa, Japan, and you realize that the world is a lot bigger than you ever thought it was. And, that experience there in the Air Force was some of the most difficult times of my life just because of everything that happened at that point in time. But they were absolutely the most rewarding times. That's a group of people that I still keep in contact with today, even though it's been years now. People that you could absolutely depend on. And learning a skill set that's just not available anywhere else.
Yeah.
And coming out of that experience, I think gave me a level of professionalism and the attitude of, man, we're just gonna get it done, no matter what it takes, just get it done. No
other option.
Yeah, that whole attitude of don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. Let's figure it out. Like there's a way to figure it out.
For sure.
And one of the best leaders I ever had the privilege of working for was my commander when I was in the Air Force, the 18th Munitions Squadron there in Okinawa, Japan. His name was Major Miller at the time. The most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. He had hundreds of airmen under his command. He led with absolute humility. He led with, absolute confidence. He was not the big burly type of leader that you would think in a position like that. He was actually just the opposite. But it was amazing because he would come up to you and say, "Airman Willis, how's your family doing?" He knew about everybody. He knew his people, and just an incredible leader. So coming out of the Air Force with that experience, working under somebody like that, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to shooting rock. That's what I love, So I was able to go back in that industry and kind of pick up where I left off, but with a different skill set.
Nice, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, got back into that and started blasting after a few years. Had the opportunity to move to Oklahoma and lead a site, be a site manager there, I was really excited for the challenge of it. I was really excited to go out there and change the world. I went into it extremely cocky. I knew I was going to go in there and make a difference. Brother, I'm going to tell you, everything happened except for me going in there and succeeding and making a difference.
Yeah.
It was just a tough situation. It was extremely humbling. August 12th, 2015, I was involved in a really bad work accident there. And it almost killed me, and was favored by God and fortunate enough to make it through that. And that really, really changed a lot of the way I think, a lot of the way I look at things. Extremely humbling experience. So even though that was probably the worst professionally I'd ever been, as far as personal growth, that was the best time I had.
Yeah.
So moving forward from that, I got bummed down a notch and started blasting out in the field and, getting back at it again. which was difficult dealing with a personal injury and everything. But really found out a lot about who I am and who we are. My wife, Caitlin. Before I go any further, I gotta say, I wouldn't be here without her because, man, she stood beside. Not only did she stand beside me every step of the way, but I was in the hospital for a couple months, and she slept beside my bed in a recliner every night. Would not leave my side, and because of that, here I am standing on both legs and able to continue in a career and that we love. And so we kind of had to do a reset. Had to hit the reset button. Went back to loading holes, doing what we know, and rebuilt from there. And so kind of went through that whole process. I got to a point where I was burned out. Didn't know exactly what else there was out there, and decided I needed to make a move. So left there and took a job as a drilling and blasting manager for the largest aggregate producer in the United States, covering their Southwest division. And that was a huge learning experience as well. That was one of those jobs that, or one of those careers, one of those places that, people strive for to, have to reach. And once I got in that position, I was ashamed to admit it just wasn't for me. I knew that I should really love it. I knew that it was a great position and I was making great money, but I missed that hands-on. There was just something there. So with that, and then with the birth of my twins, right in the middle of that, I'd been a road warrior for so many years and been out on the road and stuff, and been tossing around the idea, my wife and I, of doing our own thing. And right about that time, my brother-in-law came to us, and he had just got out of the Marines, just finished college, and he would say, I'd like to start a business. I'd like to start a family business. And we said, well, we would too. So we joined up and created our family business now, S&W Land Services. And we started out doing excavation work and stuff like that while I was still working full-time, as a drilling and blasting manager. And now we are a full 100% drilling and blasting contractor. That's what we do. We make big rocks into little rocks.
That's awesome, dude. I love it, man. That's an awesome story, and one that's similar to like a lot that I hear in the industry, right? Where it's, like the path of not choosing college, not choosing the typical career path that we're all like ingrained in as kids. Everybody's like, you got to go get a nice job as this or that, and it's like, I really like playing in the dirt, Yeah.
And
so it's kind of funny because I did the same thing as I went to college for a couple of years, and I was like, man, this just isn't for me. And luckily I had a guidance counselor that kind of directed me out of college. He's like, you really don't want this. You don't need to do this. Just keep doing construction. And so that was a blessing. But like, there's a lot in your story that I'm sure resonates with a lot of younger guys that are going through that right now. And then also that, is good future advice for their career path, because it's a similar story to a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah. Well, one of the driving forces behind me and my wife really, really wanting to do our own thing in the blasting industry is training and mentoring people coming along in the blasting industry has always been a passion of mine from day one. I've always loved it. And so with that, I've had the opportunity to train a lot of blasters and teach a lot of advanced blasting classes and stuff. And so, that is a passion, because you watch these kids come in, these young guys come in, and the ones that really, really make it, you start seeing that kind of tick, and you start seeing that little twinkle in their eye whenever they start getting it, and then whenever you see them have the opportunities to advance and train and stuff like that, and you're like, wow, they're really progressing and stuff. That's such a cool thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gets thrown around all the time. You hear, the new generation doesn't want to work. That's a bunch of bull.
It's the same amount as what used to be,
It's always the same. You're always going to have a generation saying that the generation behind them doesn't want to work. It's so ridiculous. Man, I had a summer intern move to Texas from Missouri in the middle of the summer and was living in a tent in the middle of August in 105-degree temperature, and going out and working on my shots with me every day because he was that dedicated to it. He didn't have a place to stay, but man, he got a last minute internship down in Texas, and he was all for it. Now he's an excellent technical representative for a major explosives manufacturer, doing really well for himself, making 6 figures a year. But you know what? The reason why is because he was hungry.
Yep.
You got to stay hungry.
I guarantee you the nights sleeping in 105 degrees in a tent probably drove his decision to chase that.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's like you mentioned something that I wanted to dive into, where you were out there with the shovel and it's monotonous work, right? And I think every young guy that goes through the industry and starts from the ground up has this same spot where they might take a pause in their day, and they might stand there for like a minute, and they just think to themselves, this one thought is, I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
Right. And that one statement, I can't do this forever, is like what resonates in your head. Yep. Right? Because you look at the guys around you that chose the mundane lifestyle, and nothing against those guys that just want to work, but like there's always some on every crew that's just like, hey, you've stayed in that position for the last 25 years, and you look at them and how tore up and beat up they are, and those positions will beat you up for like a long haul. Mm-hmm. And they're not meant, those entry-level positions are just that. They're an entry-level position. They're not meant for your lifetime. But there are guys that get stuck in it for a lifetime and don't get out just because they don't have the ambition to go forward.
Absolutely.
But it's those times where you go, man, I can't do this forever. And it pushes you to the next step and the next step and the next step. So
I am all about defining moments in my life. And as I've gotten older, and really, I think probably was what made me think about it more than anything is being a father. Really thinking about what I want to be for my boys to follow my example and stuff. And when I say defining moments, 2 of them really come to mind. So I graduated basic training in San Antonio, Texas. Tech school was in Wichita Falls, Texas. You graduate basic training, they hand you a manila envelope that's sealed at the top. It's basically your report card for basic training. And you take it to tech school and you give it to your instructor, and it basically tells them if you were a turd or good recruit or whatever, And so they sent us with absolute instructions: do not open these, do not read them. Well, about halfway to Wichita Falls, I realized that the adhesive had let loose on that envelope, and man, it was everything I could do to not look at it. And finally, I did look at it. What I read on there, my instructor, Technical Sergeant Garcia, I'll never forget him. Wiry little dude, pencil mustache. I was scared to death of him at the beginning. Then I realized he was there for us. You know what I mean? And he wrote that report, and what he wrote in there, he said, Airman Willis is excellent at following instructions, excellent at falling in line and doing the job, but does not exhibit any leadership ability.
Yikes.
And man, I read that, I slid that back in that envelope, and I thought about it for about the next 2 hours we had on the way there. It really pissed me off. Whenever I read it, I felt that like, he's wrong about me. I can't be right. I got thinking about it, and I'm like, no, he's not wrong. He's right. He is right. I didn't do anything there to exhibit any type of leadership ability whatsoever. I fell in line, made sure I did what I needed to do, made sure I didn't get in trouble. So whenever we got to tech school, they had basically like student leaders. They were called ropes. Yeah. Ropes got made fun of a lot. They were the goody two-shoes, the ones that were trying to get somewhere and stuff. So, all of the recruits and everything, they're like, you're going to be a rope and all this stuff. And I said, well, yeah. Whenever I got there, the first thing I did is I went over and volunteered to be a rope. And that right there, it taught me 2 lessons. First of all, I could have allowed what Technical Sergeant Garcia said to be true about me, and he didn't mean it in any way other than being a leader, or I could put in the work and prove him wrong.
That's right. There's 2 options.
Yeah, and then on the other end of that, and more so, what I would say to those young people that are slugging it out in those positions on the end of a shovel, saying, "Man, I don't think I can do this every day." You're gonna have your coworkers, and you're gonna have those people saying, "Man, you don't want to volunteer for that. You don't want to go above and beyond. Like, stay here with me." Misery loves company. forget that noise. Don't pay attention to them. Freaking, if you have the opportunity to learn something, if you have the opportunity to hone your skill, to hone your craft, take that opportunity. Do not let a single one of them pass you up.
And don't fall into the peer pressure, because like
100%.
That's what it'll do. Like I remember when I first moved here to Texas, and I was literally pushing water into a pump so we could pump it out of a gymnasium, right? Not really fun work, monotonous work, and it's like labor work. And the guys around me are just like, hey, take it, all these Mexican guys, take it easy. Like, don't make us look bad. We're here for the hour, right? We're getting paid by the hour. Just take an easy hour. You don't have to work really hard. And within like a week and a half, I was their foreman. It's like, I'm not taking it easy. Like, I'm not here to stay in the same position for the rest of my life, right? I'm here to excel. And that's great advice, man. You have two options, right? Stay in the same spot that you are, or you be exceptional at what you do in any position. It could be the smallest little task. Be exceptional at that task, and you'll be surprised where you go in life. Yeah,
absolutely. Man, the only difference between being good and being exceptional is the amount of effort you put in. Yeah. I mean, really, that's it. Yeah. And to those young people out there that are slugging it out in those positions, I would challenge you, that if you're in a place where you're asking for those opportunities and you're not finding those opportunities, if you're not given the opportunity to grow and progress, and I'm not talking about you hire on that day and then tomorrow they don't promote you to a foreman. No, that's not the way the world works. Yep. If you're out there slugging it out and earning your keep and earning your position and showing them that you're there for it, you're showing up to work early and freaking putting in a 12-hour hard day or whatever it is, and not standing around and really paying attention to what's going on, and more than anything, soaking up the environment of that work site, soaking up what's going on around you. Yeah. If that company is not giving you that opportunity to progress and to learn and to train, there are people out there that will give you that opportunity and that are looking for you right now.
Absolutely.
That are looking for somebody that will come in and develop a career. That's what we're looking for as we grow. Is we're looking for those young people that we can develop those skills in, that we can give the opportunity to provide better for their family than than their parents were able to provide for them. And the market's out there.
100%, man. Yeah, and you mentioned something else that I might have just lost thought on, but it was really important. Overall, I'll probably have to come back to it, but it was a point I was like, oh, I really want to go back to that. But if you're there's a lot of people out there that I see comment on videos that I post a lot too, because I'll ask questions. The only way to engage in content right now is to get people engaged, and so asking questions on videos is important. One of them recently was talking about work hours. And there's always the guys that are like, oh yeah, I work so much and all this kind of stuff, that are bragging just for the hours. And there's also guys that do a really good job, and because of that, they work a lot of hours. And then there's always the guys in the group of comments that are like, man, you guys are all fools. You're working so many hours. I'm not going to work more than 35. I'm not going to. And it's funny because it's like, they're sitting at home doing their thing, and they're going to remain in that position for a long time, right? And the guys that are out there that are wanting more for their career may be working a lot of hours right now, but they'll get into those positions that they'll be in charge of those folks, and they'll have a better life long term.
Yeah, it's like what are you willing to suffer for now, for bettering yourself later? Yeah. And you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, I know people that work 20 hours a week and have very few material possessions, and they're happy with that.
Yeah. A lot of people can be comfortable.
Who's to say that it's wrong? I mean, that's how they like to live. And I also know people that work 100 hours a week and don't have any time with their family and everything. Yep. Life is all about balance. You choose that balance, but what you can't do is say, okay, I'm not going to work anything over 20 hours a week and then bemoan the fact that you don't have the money to cover bills or advance your station in life. Mm-hmm. Just vice versa, if you have to find balance, and I think and that's coming from somebody that used to work, when I was working for other companies and stuff, and really trying to advance my career and coming up. I was working, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. I was driving 80 to 100,000 miles a year. Really, putting in that time out on the road. really, really getting after it, really trying to get my name out there, but more than anything, establishing my relationship and establishing my reputation and trying to make my name, a known name in this industry, because I knew that was the time in my life for that.
Yep.
My wife and I, we had just gotten married. From the time that we met, I was busy doing that type of work and working crazy hours, so she was already down for it anyway.
Yeah.
And
You're used to it.
Yeah, used to it, so she was down for it. So we knew that was the point in life where we tuck our chin and take our lumps and
that was the grindstone.
Just grind it out, and man, grind it out did we, And I'll say, like, starting this company, I think we're grinding it harder than we ever have, and really putting in the hours and stuff, but you can't expect it to pay off one day without putting in the work.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what you were talking about with balance, because like this is an area in business that I've struggled with in my past, because I've always heard you've got to have balance in your life. Everything's about moderation, everything's about balance, and like I've realized over the last couple of years, it's like people who are comfortable or are fine being comfortable, and like you said, right, like who's to tell them they're wrong? Sure, like go for it. If that's the way you want to be, definitely work the hours that you want to do, definitely be comfortable in where you're at.
Yep.
Don't expect to be, at the top of your game if you're not putting in the effort. But I've realized that that's how do I phrase this? Imbalance for a period of time so that you can go be imbalanced on another task for a period of time, and you just bounce back and forth. So like
sure,
in times of like strict business, it's a ton of imbalance, and most of the time it's like weighted heavily on the business.
Absolutely.
But then it's like, hey, you might do that for 10 years, and then it'll be like, hey, now you have less need for you in the business, and you can spend more time with your family.
Right.
So then it's a more imbalance focused on your family, whatever that vice versa effect is. And my mother used to, we lived in a small town, a coastal town in Florida, and there were, basically the slums in one area, terrible torn down houses, and then the crackhead houses, and then there's the fancy beach houses and like nice $5, $6, $10 million houses, whatever it is. And she would drive us through both neighborhoods, and she would point up at we didn't live in like a nice house, but we were not poor by any means, but we were not like wealthy. And she'd point at the crappy houses. She didn't have to say anything. She'd go to the other houses, and she'd be like, hey, you have two options. You either work really hard now or you work hard later in life. She's like, I guarantee you're not going to have as much energy when you work hard later in your life. It's much easier to do that now when you're young. And that was a way of her to get through like good grades in school for us. Yeah. Right. And push us through to go to college. But in reality, it's kind of funny because now she sees how much I work. Right. Mm-hmm. And she's concerned about how much I work. She'll call me all the time. She'll just be like, you need to stop working. I'm like, hey, you're the one that initiated this. Yeah. I'm like, I want to bring back this memory here. Yeah. You're the one that drove me through the two different neighborhoods. All right. And there's no doubt in my mind, what I'm doing here. Yeah. And I'm like, it's, we're almost 5 years in business. Yeah. So it's not even that long. And the biggest thing is people fail because they look at a couple of years as a long time. And that's a short time. 40 years in business, 50 years in business, that's a decent term. Yeah. And sometimes even then, like, I could foresee 10, 12, 15 years in business. It's going to be nice to take a slight break, but focus in other areas, right? Sure. But the same thing, right? Regardless if you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you can make the same value, depending on how hard you work. And like you said, right, is like going through the suck is like how much, what did you call it? How much, not pain, but
how much
suffering.
Are you willing to suffer?
How much are you willing to suffer? It's like working out, right? Yeah. Like you're going to gain more by, suffering more in the gym than you are if you're just going to sleep in and, be lazy all day. So it's, and that's the two things, like, I don't know who said this. But it's like, you're either suffering, actually it's probably Andy Frisella, I'm sure. I listen to this podcast way too much. You're either going to suffer the course of not doing anything, or you're going to suffer like in the gym. Yeah. Or you're going to suffer in business, right? Like, sure. You're taking one or two sufferings. You're either going to be fat and lazy, and that's going to suffer. You're going to suffer for that, or you're going to go to the gym and you're going to suffer in the gym. Wouldn't you rather suffer in a way that's going to benefit you long term. And the same is in business, right?
Right.
You can either be lazy in business and not make much of yourself, or you can suffer through the hard times and working hours and hours, and you're missing weekends, you're missing birthdays, you're missing games with your kids, whatever that is. You're suffering that now so that you have a better life for them and a better life for yourself and stuff like that.
100%. And you can take easy out of the equation.
Yeah.
This whole myth of life being easy, that's all it is a myth.
Life
was never intended to be easy.
That's the thing. I think people misunderstand that, like,
right.
The purpose of life is not to take it easy.
Yeah.
Like the whole sole purpose of life is to, and I think you and I talked a little bit about like the true service attitude, right? And I just put a LinkedIn article about like, what does it mean to be like a true servant? And like a true servant has to sacrifice.
Yeah.
You have to have sacrifice to serve somebody else.
Absolutely.
And it's not meant to be an easy thing. It's supposed to be where you give up something to go help somebody else.
Right.
Or you give up time to gain this or that or whatever that is. And all this talk about trying to have more comforts and more easy lifestyle is just
it's a distraction.
Yeah, it's a distraction. It's just you should look forward to the hard days and the hard times because that's where character builds the most, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There has never been a time in my life where life was easy that it built my character.
Yeah.
Every time, every character building moment in my life has been accompanied by something extremely difficult.
Yep.
That's everybody's life. I mean, that's where character is built. The most interesting people you meet have had the craziest, hardest lives.
For sure.
And humbling experiences, one of the things you were talking about balance, and I think kind of ties everything into what we just talked about is, you're asking about balance with everything being crazy and trying to balance work and life. One of the things I've really found out since we've been running this company, we were talking about earlier, I have 3 boys, a 6-year-old, and then we've got twin 1-year-old boys at the house, and we're homeschooling our 6-year-old, so it's extremely busy.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and Caitlin does an extremely good job of holding it down and homeschooling and running the finances of the company and keeping everything together. But, there's the biggest majority of the time I'm not home. I'm either out in the field getting business lined up, making sure it's getting done, or, working late nights in the office. So the balance of that is something that I've really focused on because, to be completely honest, having no work-life balance and being away from my kids all the time was the reason why we started this company. One of the reasons why we started this company. And I know it's kind of a dichotomy not really.
A catch-22.
Yeah, a catch-22. Yeah. You're like, you start a business to spend more time with your kids, but
the business takes up more of your time.
Yeah, but one of the things I've figured out is it's all about moments. It's all about taking those moments. You don't have to spend all day together.
Yeah.
But as long as you make time for those moments and make them count, that's what really counts, especially when you're dealing with kids, And my 6-year-old Grady, at 6 years old, since we've started this business, he's got to run a skid steer. Yeah. He's ran, and I'm not talking like sat in my lap and like with me on the controls. Like he's legitimately running it. He's running a grader, and he was sitting in my lap for the grader, but I helped him get the control set the first time.
He has more experience than I do in a grader.
Yeah, and all these things, and we bought a little Cat 259 skid steer not too long ago from a guy up close around here that ran a equipment rental place, and I wish I could remember the name of the place right now because he ran the cleanest equipment. But it was so funny because by the time I pulled the trailer around and everything, my 6-year-old had already shooken the guy's hand and made the deal on the skid steer, and I walked around and he was like, "Well, do you like it?" And I said, "Yeah, I like it. I think we'll take it." He said, "Well, good, because your boy here already shook my hand on it." And said, "Well, we can't go back on that now, can we? It's a handshake deal."
That's awesome, man.
But, so taking those moments, especially with him, has been a big thing. But talking about what we were talking about earlier, where, in our generation, we were told that if we didn't go to college and get a 4-year degree, that we were going to, literally not amount to anything. Exactly. I was told that if I didn't go to college and get a 4-year degree, that my career would never be fulfilled, that I'd always struggle for money and always be behind the ball. And so I really, really felt that burden. the consequence of that generation being taught that and pushing that on their kids, that's what they knew. It's not their fault. That's what they knew, and that's what they were told. And that's what was pushed on them. But the consequence of that is like my dad, my biological dad, he worked in the oil field for years and years and years, worked on pipelines and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here as a 38-year-old man, and I don't really know what he did for a living. Other than that, he worked on pipelines, oil field, because as a kid, anytime we would ask about, like jobs that, they'd be like, oh, no, you don't want to do that. You're going to go to college and you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, which was great ambition.
Yeah.
They didn't mean anything bad by it whatsoever, but what that did was it kept us from seeing those jobs that actually paid pretty well.
Well, and that's a big thing that, like, we're trying to initiate, too, in the industry, is the fact that, like, we need to open this up to elementary school kids.
Yes.
Not high school kids that are about to graduate that haven't, but like elementary school kids. Like, get them. Where's the love for the construction? I mean,
right.
Every little boy loves construction equipment. Every single one.
I mean, just look at Blippi and all of. I mean, everything that it seems like every time you turn around now, a kid's video has construction equipment in it. It's fantastic. Where was that when we were?
I know, right? Exactly. Yeah, we might have had the Tonka toys out in the sandbox or whatever, but like, I mean, I remember, like, and I've spoken about this probably on a few other podcasts, but like one of the biggest influences was, it was going to my dad's job, and he didn't work in the construction field. He worked when he was younger, but he was in consulting for insurance companies, and across the way at his like building there was a new site being built. And they had a grader running and a couple scrapers running, and went over there because, he could just see me peering through the window, staring at it. And he's like, hey, let's go talk to those guys. And we went up there, because those are kind of like his type of people. He's still, even though he's in more of the white collar space right now, those are more of like his type of folks. Like, he gets along with those guys. And he, talked to those guys, and he's like, hey, you mind if my boys, me and my brother, ride up in one of these? And he's like, no, not at all. And he's like, Grant, which one do you want to go to? And he pointed at the grader, and I pointed at the scraper. And so we got up in there, and they ran us for a couple of reps, and then we came off. And I just remember that, even as like a young kid, like just watching the equipment rolling coal and stuff like that was just exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. My dad was the same way. My mom was the same way. Go to college, get a good degree.
Yeah.
And because my dad was, if I'm not mistaken, the first in his family to get a good degree and like go to college and like, do something successful like that. And so that was ingrained in him as far as like, especially in that era, right? That's coming from, their parents might not have had that. And their parents are like, hey, I work too hard. I work too much. I want you to go do this and be successful. But then you look at the folks that are doing office jobs like that now, and they're working just as much, if not more, than what we're doing. Yeah. And then it's like roughly the same pay, if not, we might be making more.
Yeah. Well, we before last year, before we started homeschooling our boy, we did a career day up at his school.
Yeah.
And wow, was that an eye-opening experience. Hats off to public school teachers, man. You have your hands full.
100%.
My goodness. It was exhausting. But we were really happy to be able to take part in that career day. And there was, kids from kindergarten all the way up to 12 years old, 13 years old. So, and I had several people, how kids are, they have no filter. I had several people, well, how much money do you pay? How much do you pay? And I would tell them, well, our driller is making about this a year. And they're like, what? Well, that's more than my dad makes. It's like, well, ask your dad if he wants to drill. We got a place for him.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But a lot of those kids had no idea that, a lot of people have no idea that you can make good money working. And, one of the things that I've noticed is, whenever COVID hit, and we're living pretty close to Austin. And my job at the time had me out on the road during the whole COVID deal, so it was actually pretty cool for a while, staying in hotels by myself and
that's right,
having the road to myself. I felt like a road warrior.
At least you weren't flying as much as I was.
Oh yeah, that's a miserable experience.
I basically had to fight off every liberal.
Yeah. Well,
get out of my face, dude.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, man. Like I stayed in Texas and Oklahoma the whole time traveling around and stuff, and I'd come back and I'd tell my wife, I was like, that bull crap they're showing on the news there, people fighting back and forth. I was like, that is not what is going on out in everyday America.
Not at all. At least in Texas, it wasn't.
At least in Texas, it wasn't. I witnessed more people taking care of each other, watching out for each other, making sure everybody was good than anything, you know.
At least in our state. Like, nothing shut down in Texas.
No. And,
Very few.
And one of the things that I noticed during COVID is not only were those equipment operators not sitting at home, they were busier than ever.
They were. Yep.
They're busier than ever. You drive through and there wouldn't be any businesses open, but every freaking excavator mast out on that job site was swinging, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Which is funny because, like, I noticed flying from, starting in 2020 around the country is that I used to, I don't anymore. I pack it in my checked bag, but I used to have my hard hat hooked onto my backpack. So as I walked through, it was just on the outside of the pack. It just would dangle. Yeah. And I started seeing more of that around the airport, is like folks with hard hats walking through the airport. And I'm like, I think more, blue collar folks are flying right now because there's so much work going on. Everybody else is sitting at home. Blue collar folks are out there working. Yeah. And I was like, that's interesting because I never saw that before, and then the few people who didn't, anybody that didn't have a hard hat, they'd be like, what do you do? And it was an immediate like conversation starter.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And they would always say, they'd be like, man, it looks more fun than what I'm flying to, and stuff like that. They're flying their corporate job, and they're like, man, whatever you're doing, it looks like it's more fun than what I'm doing. I'm like, it is.
Yeah.
It is. You're right.
The last time I flew up to Tennessee to buy a drill, went up there and inspect it and everything and make sure it was good. And I was sitting in the airport waiting to come back, and this lady sat down beside me, and for the life of me, I can't remember what she said she was the CEO of. And I immediately realized she's a pretty powerful person, and she was like, well, what are you doing? And I told her what we were doing, and I told her that we went and bought a drill, and she was like, what kind of a drill, and I was showing her.
She's thinking of like a hand drill or something.
Yeah, and I was showing her, she's like, why are you flying to Tennessee to inspect a drill,
Can't you buy that one at Home Depot or something?
Yeah, and I showed her, what we were buying and why we were buying it, and told her what we do and family business and what we're building for, a legacy business for our kids and for our family and stuff. And, she was like, I have to say, I'm extremely envious of where you're at, She was like, that's really, really neat endeavor. That's a huge thing, that you're going to do. And it was really neat to have somebody that's at that point in their career that has literally accomplished exactly what they want to accomplish and is probably sitting right where she wants to be sitting, for her to say, wow, that is really neat what you're doing. Keep at it, that's a cool thing.
Because there are few things in life that are more exciting than starting your own business on the ground level. Yeah. And the beginning stages of that. Sure. Like obviously, if people have owned a business for a long time, there's different, it's like watching your kids grow up, right? You love when they're born. It's amazing. That early stages, it's just awesome. They're so cute and lovable, right? It's just, you're in awe. But then each stage, I talk about my kids, like this is, each stage of their life, it's like you don't want them to grow up, but you're excited to see them grow up. So like don't grow up out of this stage. You're awesome. You're perfect the way that you are. But I can't wait to see the next stage that you grow into, because it's also going to be fun. And and business is kind of the same way, where you're like, dang, this stage of business is really cool. Like, I don't want to grow out of this stage of business, but like, I'm super excited to see where we go in the next stage of business. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times when you meet folks that are that far in business, they're like, man, I loved that time. It's like looking back at their kid. They're like, man, I really loved when my kid was really young and cute and cuddly. And same thing with a business. Oh man, I miss the beginning stages of business.
Yeah. I had somebody tell me the other day that is a second generation owner in a family legacy company. It's really cool how they've carried on their family name. But he told me the other day, he said, I'm actually envious of where you're at, because you're building from the ground up. And he said, I'm maintaining and trying to grow. And,
I know a few people like that.
And I mean, it is exciting. I can't remember who said it, but I saw the other day that becoming an entrepreneur and starting a company is like jumping off a cliff and building an airplane on the way down. It totally is. It totally is. And I mean, we started this company with absolutely no plan B whatsoever. I mean,
burn the ships.
I mean, if this sucker folds tomorrow, I've got absolutely no plan B. But the fact of the matter is we believe in this so much that we don't need a plan B. We'll make it work.
Well, and you and I talked about this earlier, is like the fact that like failure is really not an option. Like if we had to, we just keep it running. Yeah. Like there's like there's a lot of stuff that we wouldn't want to do in business.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you can always fall back and push harder yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And so that's huge. I also want to go back to something you mentioned, and I'm going to forget it again. Why did I forget it? I think it was about the balance, and what were we talking about? Shoot. I forget. I completely
Well,
forget.
talking about balance, and I think what one of the things.
I remember it, but go ahead.
Oh no!
Go ahead.
Whenever I was talking about moments with my with making moments,
That's
when you're
was,
busy
yeah.
with your boy and everything, and I said whenever I was growing up, I didn't know what my dad did because those positions were so discouraged to us. But one of the neatest things that I have going now is whenever I get home or whenever I talk to my boy on FaceTime and stuff
Yep.
and say, "Hey, Daddy, how'd the drill run today?
Yep.
How many feet did you get?" I mean, and I'm not making this up. He legitimately is asking that.
That's cool.
A guy asked the other day, he was like, what's your business do? And before I could answer, Grady goes, we drill holes and fill them with explosives and make big rocks in them, little rocks, and we make money. And I was like,
love it, dude. Heck yeah.
That's pretty much it.
He's going to be a great owner of a business one day.
Yeah, that's the goal of it, But
that's awesome.
Teaching him about what we're doing is just like, it's no different than an employee. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong with this generation coming up now is they just expect it to be like, oh, because I told you so, that's the way we've always done it. I just leave it at that.
Yep.
Take a minute to explain and kind of get an overall better picture of what's going on and get some buy-in. You'll have a lot better luck with that.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And it, like talking about what you and your kid and stuff like that. And we were going back to the hours, right? How many hours you work and stuff. I was listening to a book on, an audio book this morning coming out here, and it's Leaders Eat Last, I think is what it's called, by Simon Sinek. Pretty good book.
Nice.
And there was a comment in there about a study that was done on the effect of work and the kids, right? So like if you hate your job and you're stressed about your job, but you work less hours, that's actually more detrimental on your kids because they see dad come home in a bad attitude, dad come home stressed, dad come home unhappy. And then they had the same study said that folks who, and this is not like owners, it's just folks that like their job, that enjoy their job, they like what they do on a daily basis, but work more hours and come home to their kids feel more secure.
Right.
Their kids feel happier because like dad's not stressed out, dad's not this, or in business you'll be stressed out, but it's a different type of stress, right? Like you love it. It's like something that you enjoy. Yeah. And so I just thought that was interesting because I always thought, the lack of hours with my family is going to cause issues. And I'm sure there's some kind of, like you said, suffering that happens through that. Like more hours with the family is always better. More time with dad is always better, right? But being able to spend a lot of hours on something that you love and then going and having that passion in that when you're with your kids is a huge security for your kids. So I think we undermine that in the industry. Is like, dude, find something that you love. And if you work a lot of hours, that's fine. Like your kids are going to notice. And really what they want to see from dad is, hey, is our family secure?
Right.
Well, love is from mom. Are we secure and safe is from dad.
That's it. Moms raise boys, dads raise men.
That's right.
And, like with Caitlin and I being so invested in this, it's 7 days a week for us,
100%.
Absolutely 100% 7 days a week. And a lot of the times there's probably so much stress in the house, you could cut it with a knife. And I really think, if we left him out of that, the 1-year-olds, they're young enough, they don't really notice the difference. But I think if we left him out of that, it would affect him negatively. You know what I mean?
100%.
If we're like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about this.
Because then they have to guess and wonder. And they're concerned.
Yeah, but what he sees is that his mama and daddy are fighting to establish something.
Yeah.
Well, and that we're fighting to do something great. And I tell you what, I would much rather watch my boy watch me go out and work a 14-hour day and work my hind end off.
Yeah.
But behave morally and do the right thing for people and do the right thing for our customers and finish that job and do it to the absolute best of our ability and come home dog tired. But I would rather him see that than me go work 5 hours and come home griping about my job and griping
100%.
about the lack of money,
Yeah, and being like transparent, like you're saying, as a family is essential. Like we go I talk to my wife openly in front of the kids about everything in business. Like
Yeah.
they know every single detail because they sit around the dinner table and they
Yeah.
listen to us, and they're pretty intentional kids. They sit there and they listen and they are part of the conversation. They'll ask me questions. Well, why this? Isn't that supposed to happen? Or what's with this? And it's like, yeah, you're right. That is supposed to happen, but in this scenario, it doesn't, or whatever, like
Yeah.
there's just interesting things, and it brings up good discussion. And sometimes you'll be sitting there talking about it, and then the kid will bring up a really good idea and a solution. You're like, you're absolutely right. Like, I haven't tried that before. Like, I've had my daughter say a few things. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go try that tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Maddie. Thank you for giving that idea. So I think that's cool, especially as like, an owner or an entrepreneur, like being able to incorporate the family into that aspect of, and it's teaching them, right? Like that business,
100%.
business isn't just straight and narrow every day. It's like a roller coaster, and it's like a plate of spaghetti, man. You never know where you're going to go.
Right. And life is that way. Life is never going to be just straight, easy across the board. It's always going to throw you curveballs. You're always going to deal with things that come out of left field. So, our kids seeing us handle these tough situations in a level-headed, metered way, I feel like is equipping them better for life than just padding them from it and saying, no, everything's okay. Everything is going to be okay. Everything is okay, But it's what I've told Grady several times. Well, we got a little bit of a problem going on right now, and this is what the problem is, but we're going to work really, really hard to figure it out, and we'll get it figured out. Don't you worry, son. We got it figured out, And
Well, and, parenting is a lot like business in so many different ways, but, in parenting your kids, some of the best times, the best times of learning are the ones where they screw up.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not the ones where they're not doing anything wrong, right? Like it's the best education moments are when they mess up and you go, hey, you've messed up here, and here's how you should do this.
Yep.
This is the learning lesson, and the same thing in business, and they can see that in business. They learn the most when, hey, we made a mistake, and this is how we solve it and fix it. I think we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more about family and how to, because we've talked a little bit about it now, but we'll dive, instead of like the whole career, we'll dive straight into family and how managing that, aspect has been, especially since you started the business. So
awesome. Good.
We'll be back. All right, guys, welcome back from the break. First off, I'm going to go ahead and pop this energy drink that's been sitting here for a while because I've been wanting to drink it and I haven't. So
Such a good sound.
So just a little plug for one of my favorite companies. Cool. Yeah, so we're back from the break. We were going to talk about, I know we've gone through a lot of kind of your life experience so far and then what you guys are doing now. We'll dive more into like your business in a minute.
Yeah.
But let's go into, or maybe we should dive into business first.
However you want
I
to
don't
do
know. Business or family first? Let's go back. We'll just do family. So, managing a business is tough by itself.
Yeah.
Managing a business as a single person is much easier than managing a business with a family. I'm just gonna.
Yeah. No. Definitely.
I watch a lot of folks that are like that talk a lot about business and great. I'm not saying this is a bad place to be. It's a great place to be single and have your own business. But there are a certain number of challenges to owning your own business and having a family, especially with young kids, because the responsibility to raise those kids is number one in life, right? Like at least and I'm sure you're going to be on the same page as in my purpose in life. There are a few things that come at greater purpose than giving God Christian children.
Yeah.
As part of his plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the responsibility there is like extraordinary. And so working a job and working a company and being able to manage that, but then also be able to give 100% to your kids so that they are the right people, as they grow up is a lot of work. So
yeah, it is.
Dive into it, man. You've got two twin boys, right?
Yeah.
At 1 year old, and then you've got a 6-year-old
boy.
Yeah.
3
boys. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it is super awesome. I'm actually a twin myself, so
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
yeah, we you know, one of the things I wanted to say, and this is a little bit off topic, but you know, one of the things I'm really passionate about is people are going to tell you what you can be and what you can't be all throughout your life. And no matter what they're telling you, whether you can or you can't, it's a bunch of bull. They're full of it. My wife and I were told that by multiple doctors that we'd never be able to have kids.
Really?
Yeah, we were told that we might as well plan on, you know, not having kids and look at other options and all this stuff. And, you know, we really fought for it. And here we are with 3 blessings, and we couldn't be any more ecstatic about it. You know, they all have their own unique personalities and their own unique challenges, and it's the greatest privilege I could ever ask for is watching those boys grow up and being the example that I was, you know, really craving and wanting at their age. You know, allowing myself to be that example to them is one of the most important things I have going. And, you know, being a business owner and being somebody that has always worked a ton of hours out in the field and everything, and also somebody, you know, that went through a period of time where whenever it was just my oldest, you know, he did miss out on me a lot. He really missed out on me a lot because I was running on somebody else's schedule and didn't have a whole lot of choice but just to be gone. With maturity and with recentering my focus, I think the biggest thing that has helped with having that quality time, being that godly example to those boys, is allowing them to see us operate on a daily basis, allowing them to see us handling difficult situations with morality, and treating people the way that we would want to be treated, you know, that I think that's one of the biggest things too. And, you know, when it comes to like our employees working for us and stuff, I really, really push that home with Grady, our oldest boy, anytime we're talking and stuff is, yeah, you know, Justin, which shout out to our driller, Justin Dominguez, man, one of the best to do it. He's a rock star, and we couldn't be more blessed to have him on our team. But, you know, like one day I'm thinking in specifically, you know, I was talking to Grady about Justin, and he said something, I can't remember what it was, and I said, you know, the neatest thing about us building our business, son, is that we get to take care of people and we get to take care of their families.
Yeah.
I said, because Justin works for us, because he's getting good hours every week, because, you know, we pay him well and stuff, he's able to take care of his family.
Yeah.
And, you know, that carries on and that grows out and that grows out. Of course, you know, he's a little boy. He's not going to fully understand that, but those little seeds are going to get planted. Those little seeds. I don't know if he wants to take over this company whenever he gets to be, you know, an adult. I hope so. Yeah. I'm definitely not going to force it, but I will lead by example and show him what it means to be an honorable man leading a company and leading a family. And my hope is that I show him such a good example that they wouldn't ever think of going anywhere else and doing anything. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I really think, you know, that is the only way we've been able to handle it is just kind of be open and honest and look for those opportunities to take them out there and expose them to what we're doing, you know, especially on the weekends. A lot of times I get to load him up and take him out with me to go lay out shots or go stick his little hind end in a drill with me, you know, and really let him kind of see the workings of that and stuff like that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is even though you're busy, just taking those small moments is really the only way to balance it.
And I think he'll remember those times for a long time. I mean, like,
for sure.
Those are so awesome experiences, and it makes me think, like, you know, we're talking about this right now, and there's a lot of business owners that may not bring their kids to the job site or part of the business as often as they should, right? Yeah. And, man, take that time to incorporate them into the business and bring them out there and show them what you do. Because, like what you said, right, like I have a feeling, you know, neither of us can see the future, but I have a feeling that, like, just off of the way that you've talked about how him running equipment and having it, you know, knowing so much about the business, he's going to have such a love for that business.
Yeah.
That it's going to be ingrained in his blood.
Yeah. And that's the hope.
Like have powder running through his veins.
Yeah, powder in his veins. That's what we always say. You got powder in his veins, and that's probably true. But like Saturday, for example, I had some work I had to get done Saturday. The Caitlin and the boys, they hopped in the truck and they rode with me, and the job site we went to, it was inactive and everything, and they waited in the truck while I laid a shot out. But what was so neat is pulling out to that job site. We passed a welder working on a plant, and he had his truck set up over their side, and his window was rolled down on that welding truck, had a little boy sticking his head out, watching his daddy work. And then we rolled past a front-end loader, and had a technician working on that front-end loader, and his little boy was right there with him watching what he was doing, and then I had my boys in there with me watching what I was doing, and, that's cool. That was awesome. Every one of those dads out there were working their butts off, putting in a lot of hours, but, man, they cared enough. They cared enough to take those kids with them and show them what they were doing and build that pride.
And you talk legacy, man. That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's how you do it right there.
And what's funny is you talk to people out in public, and they would be like, oh, isn't that bad? Like, why would you bring your kids out to this? They don't understand the joy that these boys get.
Absolutely.
Watching that kind of work
100%.
It's so much fun. It's so much better than putting them in front of an iPad or something,
Man, I'll tell you like this. One of the first big jobs as a company we ever got is we were clearing a right-of-way out by Jewett, Texas. And we got into clearing it, and it turned into a swamp on us quick. And we were running a Barco mulcher, big O tires on it and everything. And, man, I'm not going to lie, I wound up sinking that thing to the frame a couple of times. And it was just my wife and Grady at that time, and that's how long ago it was. And they went out there, and because I called my wife, I said, man, honey, I'm in a bad way. I said, and she's like, what do you need? And I said, I need you and an excavator. And so we had an excavator down on the other end of the job, so she hopped in her Expedition and drove out there, and I loaded the boy up with me, and she got in the excavator and wound up digging me out and pulling me out, and
that's awesome.
It's awesome because that was going on 3 years ago now, and my boy, he was a young boy at the time, and we'll be driving down the road now, just driving down the road, and he'll be, hey, Daddy, you remember the time we pulled that mulcher out of the mud with that excavator, and I mean, he's just wound up about it, and he loves it, and it's really neat too because as much as I love equipment and everything, my passion will always be explosives, know, and
we're all pyros at heart.
Yeah, and just the amount of energy, just the amount of contained energy that is there at your fingertips, that's something that I'll never be able to get over, and it's neat now because the way he talks about us having that mulcher stuck, I'm sure my insurance probably love me talking about this.
Yeah, right.
But the way we had that mulcher stuck now, now he talks about drilling and blasting that way. Now he, when we run out in the field, check on a driller or drill or whatever, he said that's my drill out there. He said my drill, and talking about my drill.
That's his.
That's his.
He knows.
He's taking ownership of it.
I love it, dude.
And that's
awesome.
That's how you instill it. When talking about, people saying, it's probably a bad thing having kids out on construction sites and stuff like that. I'll tell you what, growing up the way I did, being surrounded by cotton fields, being surrounded by ranches and everything else, I learned to drive a stick shift when I was 8 years old. And that stick shift was on my buddy's farm, on a turn row, pulling an irrigation trailer. We were both 8 years old, and he was sitting right there beside me. He said, all right, now push that clutch in and put it up here into first and let it out real slow. And once it gets up, shift. An 8-year-old country boy taught me how to drive a stick shift. And the reason why is because we were out there doing it.
Yep. There's no better life, in my opinion.
Yeah, we didn't have kid gloves. We didn't have Nerf, We didn't have anything keeping it soft for us, and we got out there and learned.
Yeah.
And you don't see a professional athlete just pick up at 18 years old and be the best. So how in the heck are you going to expect somebody to become 18 years old and be one of the best equipment operators out there? They got to practice.
100%.
Yeah, I think whenever it comes down to it, you don't want to underestimate the kid's ability to understand what's going on, and being open with them and giving that accountability and stuff. It's not a source of stress for him, for what I see. Like my boy, like keeping him involved in stuff like that. To him, that is his skid steer. To him, that is his drill. To them, that is his operation going on out there. And that keeps the interest alive. It's exciting to them, and that's how we push this on to the next generation for sure.
Dude, I love that. I think that's so essential, especially as having a family and having a family business, right? Like that's we have such a lack of farmers in our society now. We have such a lack of family owners, businesses similar like in the blue collar space because either their parents or somebody in the industry drove them away, right? Mm-hmm. Like somebody gave them the bad example or, just showed them the wrong experiences. And really that's, the reason why these generations are disappearing in these trades and farming, and because they just go, man, I don't want to do that anymore. Like it's a bad taste in my mouth. I just don't want to do that anymore. Grandpa gave the farm down to me and I'm going to sell it now. Yeah. I don't want to do this. I want to go into the city, whatever that is. I don't know. There's a lot of people that are in that stuff because of the legacy that their parents did show and because it was so impactful. And I think it's sad to see, the earlier example where kids leave those family businesses, but it's so inspiring to see the impact that some parents and grandparents have made where they're keeping those operations running from generation to generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether children decide to pick up that torch and carry on the family legacy, I think probably the aspect that is the most important is that they see you going for it. They see you, freaking going after what you want. You don't have to take exactly what life gives you. You don't have to be okay with where you're at in life. You can strive for greatness, and not only can you strive for greatness, but ordinary people can do great things. You know, and I mean, it's especially when you start a business, that imposter syndrome is
dude, that's
is pretty heavy,
challenging.
I think one of my biggest hurdles was being confident enough in ourselves and our abilities to as a company and as a man and everything to put that out there and open and in public for everybody to critique, and when you put your successes out there, you also got to put your failures out there.
Well, and that brings me to my question. So my question I've been thinking a lot as we've been talking about this is, that it's great that we show off and talk about all these great times and like the legacy that we're building, but like what was the hardest point in business for you and kind of like the lowest spot where you're like, dang, this is a spot where I've got to rely on God. Yeah, I've got to, because
like where I'm at now.
Yeah, because like we talked about, how we show that example to our kids, right? Like there's plenty of times where I've had to like just break down to God and be like, I know I'm not the man that I should be showing my kids this character, but like I rely on you to make me that. Yeah. What's that like? Share an example and like kind of your process through that.
Well, okay, so let me back up a little bit. In 2006. I gave my life to the Lord along with my twin brother and a good friend of ours, one of my best friends, brother Alonzo Talamontes, owns One Way Heating and Air Conditioning in Midland, Texas. Man, that family right there is like the epitome of what can happen whenever you give your faith to the Lord and go after great things. They've established a family legacy there that they've got all of Alonzo and his brothers got all their boys working there with them, and man, they are absolutely killing it serving the Lord, and it's great to see, but I had really fallen away from that walk and kind of went after the ways of the world and stuff, and that's something, and I think if everybody was more honest with ourselves and more honest with each other, I think that's probably the same struggles a lot of people have. But I tell you, probably the toughest time in business we've had, just to be completely candid, is over the last week or so. It has just been extremely tiring, extremely trying. One of those weeks where if we didn't have a greater purpose and a greater reason for doing this, it'd be very easy to want to hang your hat up and just say, to heck with it, I'm going to go work for somebody else and take it easy.
And make some money.
Yeah, it makes some money,
Stop spending it. I'm tired of losing money. I want to go make some money.
Yeah, sure would be nice to make a paycheck,
Yep.
But when the going gets tough and you've given it everything you've got, the only thing you can do at that point is hand it all over to the Lord. And I'll tell you, I've strayed a lot over the years getting to this point, and running this business has, I think, made my faith stronger than it ever has been. I think you have to get to a point where you're okay with not knowing if you're going to be okay. You have to get to the point of, I don't know how tomorrow's going to work out, but you know what I do know is that we're going to give it everything we've got. We're going to exhaust every option that we have, and then whenever it comes down to it, at the end of the day, we're going to give it to the Lord and have faith that it's going to work out. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll pick right up and move on and do what we've always done, But I think, to answer your question, a good friend of mine told me this the other day, Ace McCarthy.
Hey, good dude there. Shout out.
Good dude right there, man. But old Ace.
Hey, Ace still has Brian's hard hat. He left it in the back of his Raptor, and I forgot about that until now.
Ace, give Brian his hard hat back. No, but
I'll shoot you a text, Ace, later.
Yeah, there you go. But Ace told me, he said, him and I were talking, and we got to talking about that, and he said, I don't know how you could be a business owner and not have a foundation of faith,
That's true, man.
It's true, and I think that that is, one of those things that whenever you find something that's outside of yourself that you can draw strength from, you have to have it. You have to have a source of strength from somewhere else.
Well, like you said, that purpose, right? We've got a purpose to make people's lives better, 100%. Ultimately. But even if we didn't have that, the purpose that we have through Christ is so much greater.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And I think that's the foundation of helping other people, right? It's our foundation through our our religious background and our Christian belief is, that's the foundation of that belief, is service to others. Yeah. And so that's pretty cool, and you're dead on. It's like when you get to those low spots, you got to think about that. And honestly, most of the time, what comes to mind is, I'm doing this for them, not for myself, right?
100%.
So it's I have no other option. I have to push through. There's no other option. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to find that source of strength from somewhere else. In a place of service, absolutely. If you're going to be a successful business owner and you're going to be a successful leader, you're always going to be in a place of service.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how to say this. I've watched some companies and owners get to the point where they forgot what got them to where that was. Whenever they forget what got them where they were, the first thing that always happens is they stop appreciating their labor. They stop appreciating the guys that are out there getting it done for them.
Yeah.
And whenever that happens, it doesn't take very long for the men out in the field, men and women out in the field getting it done. It doesn't take very long for that whole feeling to get down to them. And that's when you really see ships starting to sink.
Yeah.
Your workers have to feel appreciated. For them to feel appreciated, you have to serve them.
Yep.
You have to be from a place of service. And one of the things too, over the last few weeks especially, trying to draw from faith, trying to be, the example that I want to be. I'll admit there's been some times here the last few weeks that just absolutely have not gone our way. There's been some things that some people did that I really wish they hadn't have done. But it is what it is. And I'll say that I'm sitting here now ashamed at the way I reacted to that. I let the hours get to me. I let my anger get to me, and I responded in a way that I'm not proud of.
What's cool about that though is like every good leader will reflect back on those things and go, dang, I could have done those better. And then they adjust it, right? Like they're mistakes that typically we don't make a second or third time because we've
definitely
felt the pain from them that first time.
Yeah, and I think most people, if they're really honest with themselves, you have to learn things the hard way.
Yeah.
And hindsight's always 20/20.
Yep.
So
yeah. That's some good stuff. Yeah, I think.
But
there's a lot of times in business like that.
Yeah, and I see some people that have started some small operations, some small companies really getting started, and I've had the pleasure of being around some people that are carrying on legacy companies, second generation in, and absolutely honoring their father's name, that just gave everything to get them to where they are, and they're pushing and growing. And then, I see a lot of people that are, pretty young in their business, just starting out a business, and being all of these things that we're talking about, being an excellent father, being a good example to those around them, taking care of their people, And it's encouraging because I'm seeing that from people in all different stages, you know. One of our customers that we just picked up, McCarr Materials, we've had a long relationship with them throughout the years, and they are quickly becoming one of the finest aggregate producers in that Austin area, and it's because of the way they operate. It's the way that their leadership is set up. They're a family organization, and they're focused on what's important. They work together, and they put down amount of tonnage out of a small operation that is impressive to see.
Yeah.
And that focus is on family. That focus, you got the kid's name right in the family business, so that's awesome. That's an example for that generation moving forward, and then you've got guys like Benjamin Holmgren, like that dude. I don't know if you've ever met him, but
I think I've met him. He probably wouldn't remember it, but I think I've met him back in like ConExpo.
Okay,
last ConExpo.
yeah. Well, man, I've had the pleasure of getting to know him, very limited and stuff, and his company that he started, Kesta, that guy right there is such an inspiration because he has every reason not to be doing what he's doing, and he has done some, incredible things and some incredible feats, but the first thing he is a follower of God, and the first thing he is a father to his kids.
Yeah, I love it.
And he'll be and that's the first thing he talks about is his kids and stuff, and like that. It's inspiring. It's amazing.
Those are the kind of people that I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just like those genuine guys that you can obviously see Christ working in their life, right? At whatever stage in business that they are, or even if they're working for another company, it's like those are the kind of people we want to raise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned that I handled some stuff last week and the week before that in a way that I'm not proud of, and I was talking to a good friend of mine, Colt, who's a business owner, and what he said hit me really hard, and and it's true. He said, I don't react out of kindness because of what you do to me. I react out of kindness because of the gift that I've been given.
Yeah.
And it's whoa.
That's pretty deep.
That's an example. That's how we should. And I'm far from it. I've been known to be a hothead, especially as a youngster. It was, and growing up and having certain things humble you, it really kind of makes you try to think before you react.
It's that kill him with kindness kind of attitude.
Yeah, for sure.
Because man, he's so right. We've been given such a blessing to be here.
Yeah, definitely. And
it's like, why not chase a life worth of,
Right.
We all got to look at ourselves and be like, we got to stop acting more like the world and basically the exact opposite of what the world acts is how we ought to act. And
right.
It could be so challenging. It's like so tough to do that, because that's not human nature, like God talks about it, in the Bible. It's like is it John who writes, and he says like, I do. Was it? Oh, it's Paul. It is Paul. You're right. It's I do what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But then what I don't want to do, I do. Or like, how does he phrase it, Brian? You probably know the exact scripture.
The things that I do, the things that I want to do, I don't do, and the things that I don't want to do, I do. But
Yeah.
it's not I who do it, but the sin that dwell in me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know if
There you go.
I don't know if that picked up on the
Oh yeah.
on
Yeah.
the audio, but that's like I think about that all the time because it's like you got to take a step back and you got to go, this is what I want to do. Is it really what's right though? Like,
Right. Right.
Is that really what's right, or is this my carnal mind thinking
Yeah.
this? And then what's the appropriate response? So
You hear all the time, business is war. You
Yeah.
know, business is war. Business is war. We got to take them out. I've thought about this tremendously. Probably spent more time thinking about it than I should. But I think that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
I think that comes from a feast or famine mentality.
Yeah.
And I think a feast or famine mentality comes from a place of fear. And we've decided as a company that business is not war.
Yeah.
We're not going after any of our competitors. As a matter of fact, we don't even want to bring up our competitors.
Yeah.
You'll never hear me go to a customer or a potential customer and cut our competitors down.
Yeah.
That's
one of our rules.
That's a bad way of doing business.
Yep.
It will always come back to bite you. You're not bringing good things upon yourself.
Yeah.
If you're practicing good customer service and meeting that customer where they are and finding that pain point and figuring out how you can work together to solve that pain point, you don't even need to talk about your competition.
Nope.
Just leave their name out of your mouth.
Well, we talked
Don't
about
worry
it
about
earlier too, is like be so exceptional at what you do.
Right. Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
if your focus is more on I'm going to be the best at what I do
Yeah.
and not, oh, I've got to be better than that person.
Yeah.
It'll show for itself.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to be so focused on what you do. Excellent.
And
it doesn't matter.
And the sweet spot of it is focusing on what you do, making it better than, just making it absolutely as good as you possibly do for that customer, meet them there at that point in time. But also 100% make sure you're operating on principles.
Yep.
100% make sure that there is a moral compass in place and that you're sticking to that,
How do I would, because this is something that we dive in a lot with our partnerships, is that moral compass to us, we try to establish through their vision, their mission, and their values. We try to lay out it that way so that they have like written rules or written tools, rather, not rules, tools for their people to look at and say, this is where we're going.
Right.
It's a unity aspect. How important is it in your business to be like, hey, like we're a legacy company, we're a family-owned company. Like we've got all of this planned for the future. Like how hard is it to instill that in your people?
Well, instilling that in our people hasn't really been an issue because we've been so open with them right from the get-go about what we're there for, about what we're doing. And anybody that's crazy enough to come on with a startup
Yep.
company like this, already is a little bit on board with it anyway, But, really, honestly, the best way to temper that and make sure that everybody is on board is being open with them, being honest with them. But also, too, not only being open and honest with them, but also giving them a spot at the table, too,
Yep.
I'm a blaster by trade. I've been around drilling all my life, but up until buying a drill a few months ago, I didn't have a whole lot of experience with the drill.
Yeah.
So we went out and hired one of the best drillers around. And he's taught me an incredible amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's really taught me a lot about being a driller. From working with that, it has made me an incredibly better blaster.
Oh, yeah.
It has improved our blasting program tremendously and having the two work together. But being honest with him about his role and what he's doing for our company, but also saying, hey, what's your feedback on this? How's that drill running with that 5-inch bit on it?
Yeah.
Do we need to make any changes on it? What could we do better? And I think bringing those people in and actually giving them a voice to give some recommendations and stuff is the best way to keep people motivated for that one common purpose and that one common goal.
Yeah, I like that. It's just like bringing them into the process. It's similar to your kids, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
It's like hey, I'm bringing my kids into the business, and they get to see, they get to make input, and like when they get of the age, then it's like cool. Now your duty is to add value.
I think you talk, like, people talk all the time about retaining the new talent.
Yeah.
Bringing new talent in and making sure that that they feel that they're effective and a part of the overall picture. I think, and from what I see, that's probably the main difference between the generations. There is the older generation that was in place whenever I came into the powder industry and stuff like that. They didn't need the whole picture. They didn't give a crap, they were there to do their job and do it well. They didn't need to know what was done after. They just did their job well, you know?
Exactly.
And I think, the generation that's coming along now, they want to know that full picture. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They want to see the end result of it, and they want to get a little bit of gratification out of it. It's a difference in the environment that they're growing up in. They're growing up with electronics and stuff, and I mean, I'm old enough that I didn't have a cell phone until I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, completely different environment growing up in.
Yeah, and you're right. Like we've seen, like my dad's era, for instance. We've talked about this on other podcasts too. Is he was very good at, hey, I'm gonna get my job done, and I'm providing for the family, and that's the purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And younger generation now, not that this is a bad thing, this is a great thing, because it means that there's more people that are going to start changing the world, I think.
Yeah.
Is the fact, and this is where I was when I quit construction, is the fact that I'm not so much worried about the paycheck as I am the purpose. So I would rather understand that what I'm doing is making a difference long term, and that is fulfilling my existence on this planet to help other people and serve other people. We try to tell people all the time, is like, if you can give your company employees freedom, control, and a purpose, like, you will keep them forever. Because that's what people typically lack in a white collar job or an office job or a job that doesn't really take care of you. Is they don't really give you that purpose. They don't give you freedom to do what you want to do, and they don't give you the control to be able to manage what your task is. They're either breathing over your neck or whatever. But that's important, especially as we go on and we try to retain this next generation. Is like, companies need to understand, sure, they need to be paid good, but you need to show them that purpose.
Right.
If you don't show them that purpose, then likely they're not going to stay there for long.
Sure. Yeah. Going back to, like, right at the very beginning when we first started talking, you were you talking about guys that have been in the same position for years. At those entry level positions, they're still there slugging it out. I'll be very open and candid about something that happens a lot in the blasting industry, is that you get a guy that's a really good blaster at a location and the customer really loves him there, and that's where he goes to finish his career, whether he likes it or not. And I hear from guys all the time, that are on up in age. They're like, man, I don't know if I can keep loading shots. You know what I mean? They're like, man, I'm burned out. Don't know if I can keep loading shots. And a lot of those guys, are guys that I've worked with for years and are good friends of mine. And, that's one of the reasons why we started this company is because of those guys like that. But I will say this, and whenever I was training blasters and working, really bringing on that younger generation of blaster, I would always tell them this, be like, look, get that fear out of your head of getting stuck. Everybody can get stuck. But if you go out and look at every guy or gal that's in the field, that's in a position that they feel like they should have been out of years ago, and they're bitter about it, and they have a bad attitude about it, and they're just going out there and getting it done and going back, usually 9 times out of 10, the only thing that they have to go do to figure out who's responsible for where they are is go home and look themselves in the mirror.
That's right.
And usually there was something that happened along the way, or there was multiple opportunities passed by.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing, is not letting those opportunities pass you by. The second you have the opportunity to learn a skill that will help you out, you learn that skill. and learn it well.
I feel like pride plays a huge role in that, because you get into this aspect of, and going back to like the team, right? That is always take it easy. If you get mixed up in that that construction or that mining mentality where people are like, hey, you're so green, or you're not tough enough, or like all these guys that are just like roughnecking it out there, and it's all about the pride. I'm the hardest MFer on site, and you guys can't even whatever.
Yeah.
And they end up building themselves into this like perception of I have to keep doing this because it's what's tough and it's what's manly.
Yeah.
And it's like I want to be seen as the hardest dude on site. And it's like nobody gives a crap.
Yeah.
No one cares, honestly. Like it's great if that's where you're at. Like be hard. I don't care. But are you accomplishing anything in your life?
Exactly.
Like, no? Okay. Sorry. I'm not going to stay, here. And they have a huge influence on the younger guys too, right? Because that mentality is so cancerous that it'll swallow up these young guys. And they either leave the industry or they stay in that position forever because they feel like they have to be like that too.
Yeah.
And it's great to be hard and work a lot of hours, but to be stagnant and on a plateau for the rest of your life is just meaningless.
Absolutely. It's funny how many people in the industry called me after we were getting started, and almost every call that was like this, I pretty much could write a script for it. And it was usually somebody that has been in the industry forever, and we worked our way to the top, and I'm going to tell you, this business is really hard, and you can't do it without any money and all that, and you can't do it, and you can't do this, and you can't do that.
Fear-mongering.
Fear-mongering, man. And, it's funny. Like, I actually loved those calls. I loved getting those calls. I was like, all right, bring it, buddy.
Yeah, because they wouldn't be saying – why would they be wasting their time telling you that if they weren't concerned?
Yeah. Why if they're concerned enough that your name is in their mouth, then that means you're doing the right thing. Keep on going.
That's
Do
right.
Not stop. Keep on
exactly
going.
Right.
Yeah, keep it up.
They're a little bit scared.
Yeah,
a little bit scared.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a kind of a prideful and a humbling experience that they're afraid of some little small actor like us, but you can't let fear stop you.
Nope.
You gotta go for it.
That's it.
Gotta go for it.
So looking back at business and what you've learned in the last 3-4 years, what are some of the goals of S&W over the next 10, 20, lifetime, whatever you want? What are your top goals, and how do you guys see yourself getting there?
Well, I don't think you can talk about long-term goals without talking about stability and what you have to offer to bring to the market and stuff, So I guess we could probably break that down into like short-term goals, intermediate goals, and long-term goals there, So our short-term goal now and what we're working towards is really getting our fleet built up, our drilling fleet built up, bringing those right players into place. But our biggest focus short time is offering the absolute best customized customer service available. I had somebody tell me the other day we're like a boutique blasting service.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, and I took that as a huge compliment because the customers that we're working with, we're going in behind. We got this customer base from major players in the market that are very well established in this market, and that we were able to get the business solely because we were focused explicitly on that customer's needs, not ours.
Yep.
We are focused on establishing relationship. Relationship is everything. No matter what in life, relationship is everything.
Yeah,
but that's one of the things in business that has made itself absolutely apparent. Relationship is the most important thing you can have. Just like, a good example of it is working with a customer to reduce the amount of, say, fines that they're getting in their muck pile. To do that, we have to spend intimate time in there with them and focus on their entire operation, focus on their entire operation cycle, and see what their pinch points are, what their pain points are, and work that process and make those small, minute changes to get the end product exactly where they want. It doesn't matter if we look at that end product and say, ew. If they look at it and say, man, that's fantastic, that's what we're going after. Yeah. So, short term is really just focusing on providing a better customer service than anybody else in the industry.
Nice.
Making it, these plant operators, if you're running a rock quarry or any type of a large earth moving project, you have enough to worry about that if you have drilling and blasting going on site, that needs to be the least of your worries. And whenever I say that, when you bring somebody in like us, it can be the least of your worries because we handle the operation from the beginning to the end completely turnkey and make absolutely sure that we're making the adjustments and making sure that you're getting exactly what you need. Transparency is a huge part of that.
100%.
Transparency is huge in what we do. So, like, short term, to help us achieve that goal is bringing in, the best technology that we can, working with companies like Strayos and Ravi Sehu. They're absolute pioneers in the AI industry and for mining. And, they produce a very good product for drilling and blasting. So getting to use things like that and getting that information and presenting that information to the customer so they see that what you're doing is in their best interest, Yeah. A lot of the changes that we make is not in our best interest. We'll lose a little bit of money on it, but it's for the best interest of the customer. And if I make a little bit less money now, but 15 years later, we're still in there shooting for them and we've helped them develop into a major player, then that's what we're here for.
Yeah. It's building those long-term relationships, like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we're not here for the short term. We're here for the long term.
Yeah. And then, intermediary, I really want to, as far as like organizational wise and stuff like that, we have a lot of interest from some really great players in the industry, and coming and joining our team. So intermediate, they're really focusing on making sure that we provide, the best environment that we can so that they'll succeed, and not only succeed but bring their expertise into our program and really get to stretch their wings and do some amazing things there. And then long term, we got into this and we started this company to build a legacy company, and not only a legacy company, but a legacy company that honors both the Willis last name and the Sievers last name, which is my wife's maiden name, and my brother-in-law, our business partner, it's his last name. There's a lot of honor and pride that goes along with that. We started this company after we lost my father-in-law and his wife due to COVID back a few years ago. And, that whole deal right there, we kind of looked at each other and like, man, life's short. We got to do something.
That's right.
So, really building a legacy that honors that name, that's really important. But along with that, is building that legacy and leaving our mark on this industry. This industry has done an incredible amount for me and my family, for generations. We've earned good livings off of this. You can drive around the state of Texas and see our handiwork. I've got a blasting machine sitting in my garage that is responsible for a large portion of the blasting in San Antonio, that helped develop a lot of the, Fiesta, Texas and Loop 1604. And so, a legacy of leaving our imprint not only on our projects, not only on our land, but more so leaving that imprint in the families that we serve and that we provide for. That's our biggest thing, is leaving our mark on this industry.
That's awesome.
To achieve that, to leave that mark on this industry, moving forward, as we mature, our focus is on bringing training opportunities to those young individuals that are looking for the opportunity to establish a career, looking for those hungry individuals that want to learn. We have the ambitions of putting together a training academy that we can bring existing blasters, people that are interested, people that need certifications and stuff, bring them in and get them trained in an environment where they can have hands-on and just a different learning environment than anything that's out there. And the same with the drilling industry. Just we really, really, really want to do our part in pushing this industry forward and getting young individuals to realize how flipping awesome it is to load 20,000 pounds of explosives in the ground and then move a mountain in less than a second.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool. It's cool, you know.
That's awesome.
It's neat, you know. One of the first jobs that my wife went out with me on, and actually the first project as a company, we were on this pretty large construction job for a recycling pond, and I was in the middle of loading a shot, and I turned around and looked, and Caitlin, she's just standing there looking around, just kind of looking all around, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And she was like, "You know, all these dozers and excavators running around and everything." She's like, "It's really jaw-dropping. You know, it's like an electric environment out here."
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, "You know what the coolest thing about it is, though, what we're doing?" And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Every one of those guys are in machines, and we're out here on our hands and knees getting these holes loaded. You know, there's a physical aspect there." I said, "But when we get this sucker ready to go, in less than half a second, we're fixing to release an amount of energy that all these machines here on site put together couldn't release."
Yep.
You know?
That's pretty cool.
I mean, you know, loading a product in the ground that has 4 times the velocity of a 308, you know, rifle cartridge. And that's just the coolest thing. And if we don't get it out there to the younger generation, it's going to greatly suffer. And the drilling and blasting industry has always been a foundational industry for the development of our civilization. There's not much you can build without crushed aggregate, and there ain't a whole lot of crushed aggregate gonna come out without drilling and blasting.
Yeah.
So I say really, you know, long term, that's our biggest deal is we would love to be a vehicle to bring that interest into the industry and really push that forward. Build that legacy for our boys, you know, and build something that our family can carry on.
That's pretty cool. So that kind of brings me to my final question, right? You bring up your boys a lot, and the legacy that you're building for them is so essential. If you could talk to your kids in the future when you hand the business down right now, like what would you tell them? Knowing right now when you started this company and the hard work that you put into it, what would you want them to know early on in the business?
Have faith in yourself. Don't let what you perceive as lack of experiences or limitations stop you from going after it. You're capable of a lot more than you think you are, and you know that imposter syndrome will really sneak up and bite you. And if you're not careful, it'll keep you from achieving your dreams, and all it does is postpone it. So, I would say if I could go to him right now and tell him, "Hey, look, you're fixing to take over this company." I would tell them, be 100% confident in what you're doing. Make a decision. You know, learn to make decisions quickly, but don't let sentimentality kill you. Like, don't be sentimental about it. If you're wrong, you're wrong. It's okay. Freaking make another decision and move on. Like, we're not keeping score here. It's all about survival, right? And I would tell them, like, embrace the suck. Like, that's a crappy thing for a dad to say, right? But embrace the suck. Like, there's going to be crappy things that come along. There's going to be tough things that come along. Whenever those situations come around, all you can do is keep the faith, duck your chin, you know, keep your guard up, fight your way through it. And before you know it, when you're out of it, you look back and laugh and say, "Man, that really sucked, but I'm glad we went through it. We learned a lot from it." I think probably that's the biggest thing I would tell them. And you know, I would hope that if I do my job right, the rest of this wouldn't need to be said. But you treat your people fairly, and you don't ever take advantage of a man or his time. If you give a man your word, you keep your word, especially if that man works for you and he's dependent on you. And that's what I would tell him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Man, nailed it. Dude, thanks for coming out.
Yeah,
man.
thank you for having me out. Yeah.
Yeah, we're running up on time, so I figured I'd throw that last question out, and I love that because I I always like to see, you know, what do I want to see, or what do I want my boys or my kids to know when I'm you know, out of the business and I'm handing it off to them. It's kind of a cool little thing to look at. So
I mean, really, if you look at it, that's really the biggest, most important thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
if you're building things for the right reasons, money will come.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Dude, nailed it.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
out.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks for
man.
the time.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right,
Enjoyed
guys. Thanks for watching the Built on Blue Collar podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you.